Thank you. Thank you, Katarina, for your kind introduction, and thank you very much for inviting me as a visiting lecturer for this extremely interesting and important lecture series. My name is Saara Ratilainen, and I'm from Tampere University. I currently work as a senior lecturer in Russian language and culture, so I teach both Russian language and culture and media related topics here. And my topic today is gender and feminism in the digital East. And unfortunately, East mostly in my case means Russia, since I'm a Russian scholar. So some of the cases touch upon other contexts, other Eastern European, Eastern and post-Soviet contexts as well, but mostly it's about Russia. So I wanted to, as a background, I wanted to introduce two contexts of the things that I'm going to talk about today. And you are quite familiar with the first one already, since I sent you beforehand an introductory essay to a special issue that was published in 2018 in an online or electronic journal, Studies in Russian, Eurasian and Central European New Media, Digital Icons. And the special issue is Women and Tech in the Post-Socialist Context, Intelligence, Creativity and Transgression. So you basically got a very got an idea of what the issue itself consists of, what kind of topics are there, and also framing the field of gender analysis of online communication, internet technology, tech field in general in this context of Eastern European, Russian, Eurasian studies. And I co-edited this issue with Marielle Weiermars and Dustin Walms, being myself kind of the lead editor and initiator of the issue. And I thank you very much already for the great and very insightful comments and feedback and questions that I got from you based on the essay. And then another thing, and Katarina already mentioned, I'm currently working on a 4-year research project, Mediated Feminisms in Contemporary Russia. And the project is funded by the Academy of Finland, and it's just started this September and will last until 2025. So we have still a lot to do, a lot like work to do is ahead of us. The project is hosted by Tampere University, Faculty of Information Technology and Communication Sciences, and we have a team of 4 researchers. Daniil Zaivoronok, who should be here. I think I saw Daniil's name here already, so he might have, yeah, here he is. You were already introduced, probably before you joined, I'm not sure. But yeah, Daniil is actually here at Tampere right now. Then Galina Mjažević and Inna Perheentupa will join later. Galina next year and Inna Perheentupa the kind of the final stages of the project. And we have institutional partners at European University at St. Petersburg and Center for Gender Studies at European University and Cardiff School of Journalism, Media and Culture. So it's pretty big project in that sense, like institutionally and also in terms of its time span. But we are at the very start, and part of the talk will be based on what we've kind of worked on together with Daniil already, based on like on the project or around the project. So basically, the outline for today's lecture is I'm going to go through some, like very briefly, some key concepts that will help kind of conceptualize and theorize maybe my talk and the examples that I'm going to discuss. And then I'll introduce like a historical topic is cyber feminism in Russia, 1990s phenomenon, maybe, and then creating some links and then moving on to more contemporary cases of digital feminist activism, feminist social media influencers, and then opening this question about hyper-mediatized feminism and neoliberal media markets and media structures in contemporary Russia that kind of somehow create the technological, but also like the media context for a lot of the also feminist activism, but other types of mediated feminisms. So first, I'm trying to see this. Okay. Well, I wanted to start with some. I'll remind you of some definitions or conceptions of gender, which is of course key concept for this lecture, coming from post-structuralist feminist theories, and kind of also underlying my discussion of feminist media studies as well, or this like feminist approach to media and digital communication. And starting from Judith Butler's definition of gender as social roles and relations ascribed to sexed bodies. So it's separated from the biological gender, the sex. And thus gender is a flexible category and prone to incoherencies, inconsistencies, and changes over time. But of course, the limit to its flexibility are set within the terms of a hegemonic cultural discourse. And this is the dynamic that kind of causes the flexibility of gender, but also certain continuities and fixed ideas usually that kind of last and stay as we talk about gender roles and gender hierarchies and so forth. But also gender is a great category when we talk about social relationships and societal relationships and relationships of power. And as John Scott, a historian, John Scott has argued, gender is a primary way of signifying relationships of power. So of course, when we take this gender approach and feminist approach to media, we are dealing with larger issues of power dynamic and societal hierarchies and political power. And the third one is coming from Teresa de Laurentiis, gender as a product of a number of social technologies. And we can, with this concept, we can scrutinize we can take a certain field of signification and scrutinize it as a technology of gender, a system of representation which assigns meaning to individuals within society, and that comes with the power to control the field of social meaning and thus produce, promote, and implant representations of gender. So in sum, I'm taking a constructivist approach to gender and gender representations. And then about the historical context, and of course each society kind of supports and maintains, produces, reproduces a very kind of context bound both different gender discourses. And researchers Kratskova and Morel have differentiated three dominant trends that are framing currently the divergent gender discourses of contemporary Russian media. And as you can see, they're coming from or relating to quite different developments and context and historical kind of contexts. The first here is, according to Kratskova and Morel, the neoliberal framework, which frames the way gender is discussed and represented in post-Soviet media, meaning or highlighting the role of the gendered and enterprising self which means that gender identities within this discourse are influenced by new materialities of neoliberal economies and discourses of individualism, personal success, and make-up culture, which was very prominent and became very prominent in Russian media early 2000s, or at the turn of the 2000s. And also the in terms of feminism and feminist discourses, this also relates very closely to post-feminism and post-feminist media images and representations. But at the same time, and parallel to the neoliberal framework, there is the resilience legacies of Soviet discourses that are still continue to be very influential. And here there is an emphasis of professional identities and education, education and professionalism as a duty to society to a certain extent, and women's role in the private sphere. And also there's still continues to be this very highlighted discourse on women's double burden, that they need to kind of succeed both professionally but also as mothers and nurturers for the family. And then the third one, also more related to contemporary Russian society, traditionalization of gender norms, also known as neo-patriarchal discourse, which is of course closely relating to the neo-conservative turn in Russian politics and societal values that we've been witnessing over the entire, at least the entire Putin period. Also closely connected and closely connected to state patriotism to a certain extent, also reinforcing traditional, or very strongly actually reinforcing traditional gender norms, and growing influence of the Russian Orthodox Church plays also an important role in this gender discourse. So we can see parallel overlapping framings for and how post-Soviet society, how gender discourses are being produced in contemporary and post-Soviet media. The next one, of course, one of the important conceptual frameworks for this talk is feminist approaches and theories of technology. And here a fundamental text is Donna Haraway's Manifesto for Cyborgs, or the Cyborg Manifesto, also known with this title, from originally published in 1985. And in this text, which kind of continues to be quite influential to the at least, and also kind of topical in different contexts when thinking about the potentials, but also the challenges of technologies to female empowerment in different contexts. But in the original text that was written in the 80s and earlier, Haraway introduces the hybrid of human and technology, the cyborg, as a category of feminist social utopia. So it's a very utopian text. It's very kind of creative thinking about technology and its potential to deconstructing gender hierarchies. And through this concept, she criticizes the binary notion of gender and offers alternatives to it. The cyborg, she argues, is a creature in a post-gender world. The times of rapid technological development offer opportunities to change the course of gender dynamics. So there might be a window of opportunity in times of rapid technological development, which we are kind of live amongst, and we live with this, with the ongoing development and fast development of different online communication technologies, at least. And with the help of advanced technology, she argues it is possible to redefine and reconstruct social structures in a way that will help deconstruct existing gender hierarchies. And with the help of technology, it is also possible to create new hybrid categories of gender and sexuality. So if we have this third, this party of technology, or this element of technology and cyborg, what does it do to our conceptualizations and our concepts of gender and gender hierarchies? That's kind of the question that she's putting forward. So cyber feminism, and Haraway, of course, was very influential in the early cyber feminism that became one of the feminist how do you say, like one of the ways how feminism started to develop and was developing in early post-Soviet society. And actually it was quite marginal but quite creative framework for feminist theory and feminist practice. So how cyber feminism in post-Soviet Russia is described is kind of balanced, or it's like a very much both like theory, creativity, creative ideas coming together, and also practice, practical knowledge and education in the field of technology, and empowerment, women's empowerment through technological skills. So here are just a few images from Afisha that published an article of cyber feminism in 2015. There's an early website of cyber feminists, and then some photographs of the offline activities, the workshops that cyber feminists were organizing, running. So basically what it consisted of and how it came about in early post-Soviet Russia, cyber feminist movement was inspired by the possibilities of new technologies and feminist ideas. And one of the key figures who is interviewed in our special issue, so that's why I'm quoting from her a lot, because Inna Perhentupa, actually, she's in our project, or will be in the project. She interviewed Alla Mitrofanova for the special issue, and also asked a few questions about the cyber feminism of the 1990s. So she was one of the founding members of cyber feminism in Russia, and was taking part in founding a cyber feminist group in St. Petersburg in 1993. She was interested in digital forms of activism at the time, and this is very kind of interesting and crucial, at the time when the internet was still at its very early stages. So we can talk about just like a few dozens or very small numbers of people who were in general users of this new internet technology, and the number of developers and content creators was much smaller. We can talk about like just a handful of people who were involved with this new communication technology. But drawing from and being inspired by cyber feminism and cyber feminist theories and feminist, like post-structuralist feminist theories, they saw this opportunity that technology creates a new reality, and feminist theory should be included as one of the main political tools in that new technological space. So that was the idea. And in post-Soviet cyber feminism, the idea of cyborg, launched by Haraway, queer as like a flexible gender identity and category. Perestroika, this idea of reconstructing the entire society, rebuilding the entire society, and post-feminism all came together. So it was like a mix of different contexts and ideas of the time that were there of the time, coming from the academy, feminist theories and feminist philosophers, historical framework of the Soviet Union, perestroika, and so forth. But one of the kind of the Russian or like one of the things that Russian cyber feminists actually emphasized more in comparison to their international counterparts was materinstva, motherhood. So they also combined this idea of motherhood to cyber or cyborg technology, and what kind of ideas that would produce. So that actually it's the idea is that, well, while the Western or international other like cyber feminists coming from other country kind of were ignorant maybe more of the questions of motherhood, it was very central to Russian cyber feminists. But they were very internationally connected and networked, collaborated with Australian cyber feminist art group VNS Matrix, that's probably one of the most famous ones, and also were organizing these offline activities, such as courses of practical independence for women, which was like just teaching technological and technical skills to repair different technology and devices, but also academic and ideological, or like networking with cyber feminists from all over the world. And actually the second Cyber Feminist International was organized in St. Petersburg. And also they founded a women's internet center. So they wanted to engage women with the new technology. And it's interesting how they say in retrospect, how they remember these times. In the interview with Afisha, one of the early cyber feminists is saying that we thought that if we can gently direct women to work with internet technologies, they start a gradual change, reconsider their identity, and get rid of gender dependence. And this is also interesting. We couldn't imagine then that internet, once becoming a mass phenomenon, would become such a misogynist space. So what we have now with the internet is entirely different than the early cyber feminists were kind of envisioning for us, and the opportunities were kind of lost somewhere in the way. So I'm going to skip this slide to move on with the presentation, but there's like Alla Mitrofina is remembering the birth on the start of cyber feminism and connecting it to the underground techno culture of the time and techno parties, and how so it was like very this kind of dynamic field of underground culture and alternative cultures. And here is pictures of Alla Mitrofina in a YouTube video where she's explaining. It's a very kind of interesting video made in very creative fashion. So there's a link on the slide. And just an image of the cyber feminist manifesto for the 21st century by BNS Matrix, the Australian cyber feminist group. And in the manifesto, you can read it here in the picture, they kind of connect this female physiology to and see it as a source of creative and arts and creative work and creative thinking. So it's very interesting. And also these ideas continue to be very relevant in also in contemporary Russian theory, since there's a new edition of Donna Haraway's Cyber Manifesto, edited by Daniil Zhaivoronok, and it's published in the series by Garage, which is one of the major venues for modern art, contemporary art in Moscow. So in that way, you can see that these ideas still continue to be relevant and continue to be republished and used for different purposes. But also it's interesting to think about the connections, continuities, and also differences between these, the early cyber feminism and today's digital feminism. And Mitrofanova in the interview with Digital Icons is saying that contemporary feminist activism in Russia is actually more about media action than IT action, like IT technologies and empowerment through these technologies, which she sees as a different strategy. And this is something that we kind of trying to figure out in our project as well. And it's also interesting that she's stating, as we're talking about communication technologies as global technologies connecting people globally from different parts of the world, but Mitrofina still sees that contemporary feminists have not been able to build global networks like earlier generations, which is also an interesting thing while she's observing how digital feminists now are using communication to network, but like maybe it's a different type of networking than what she thinks about when she thinks about the 1990s international meetings with cyber feminists from other countries and coming together like in in real spaces. And also she sees a problem in education for this convergence of activism and political activism and IT technologies, since in Russian universities, and might also somehow concern other contexts as well, computer science is happening quite separately from political science and cultural theory. So there needs to be a little bit more kind of connections between the professionalism and this like exchange of ideas between these fields. But now I'm moving on to examples of contemporary digital feminism. And one of the landmark social media campaigns against gendered violence in the post-Soviet context, and now we can actually broaden our perspective a little bit to cover other countries than Russia as well, a Russophone social media context, was or is an online flash mob. It was called flash mob in media. And it was initiated by Ukrainian activist and civil rights activist Anastasia Melnichenko already in July 2016. So it happened before Me Too. The context for this, or the context for this campaign was Ukrainian war and the violence kind of that was everywhere in media relating to that war. But Melnichenko herself, being Ukrainian human rights activist, was working with female victims of war, and in that context, this violence and gendered violence, and especially like gendered violence that women have to encounter during wartime, but that's probably not so much discussed or covered in media, became quite, an important issue. And then she, of course, connected that context to her personal experiences of violence and shared that experience on Facebook with the hashtag Я не боюсь сказать in Ukrainian, Я не боюсь сказать in Russian, which means I'm not afraid to tell. And I think the original Facebook post was on July 5th, and overnight, thousands of social media users, both women and men, participated in this hashtag, in the use of hashtag, started to share their own stories, and then it very quickly extended to Russian and Belarusian social media as well, and therefore the different language hashtags. For example, Я не боюсь сказать, the Russian hashtag, and Я не боюсь сказать, the Ukrainian language hashtag. And usually, and later they were used together in the same posts, and that kind of connected the Russian and Ukrainian speaking worlds at the time of military and political conflict between the countries, which is also very interesting. But also other like more established media outlets responded very quickly, mainly liberally biased online media. And they engaged also professional and NGO fields into the discussion. So it became quite huge and lasted a few months. This discussion around Jāņibājus Skazat, the campaign itself, but also extended to cover other topics relating to gendered violence and sexual harassment. And how Melnichenko herself describes the campaign, well, she said in an interview by Medusa that was published 3 days after the hashtag, after she posted the original post. So you can see how fast it took the media landscape. She's saying that it's against objectification of women, against treating women as sexual objects. I wanted to show that women encounter harassment regardless of age, clothes they're wearing, or time of the day they're walking home. So pretty kind of universal ideas about gendered violence. And it's interesting that Afisha Daily, a few months later, called an American online campaign against Trump sexism, American style, I'm not afraid to tell. And then October next year, Me Too broke globally. So this might be one of the reasons why Me Too wasn't so much, there wasn't so much response to hashtag to Me Too campaign in the Russophone context, since there has already been quite extensive, more like more kind of homebound or domestic campaign of the similar nature a year before. So these issues were kind of existed already in the media. So hashtag Me Too was kind of logical continuation of the discussions around Jāņibājus Skazat campaign. But the more current issue, I think, is that online feminism, of course, there's other examples of online feminist activism, different ways of using online technologies and communication platforms for activism. Also, radical feminism, grassroots activism, grassroots activists are using online technologies and social media very skillfully for their own work, in their own work. But there's also this other line of development, which is online feminism intersecting with neoliberal media and media market, and this type of, attention economy and information capitalism that we all have globally. And here are just a few points witnessing to this development. For example, celebritization of Pussy Riot, how shortly after their activism, they became global celebrities. And basically, their activism or action, political action, was based on memetization of feminism and kind of taking some bright symbols and symbols of feminism and then spreading those on social media for attention. And both Jelena Gapova and Danil Zhaya-Voronok have discussed Pussy Riot as digital activism, and also from the point of view of this kind of memetization of feminism in their work. And Jāņibājus Skazat, of course, also took place on Facebook, on a global platform owned by a multinational media corporation or digital corporation. So also kind of supported by this digital economy and attention economy. And also liberal online media that I also already mentioned started to or were endorsing different kinds of feminist topics in their contents, coming from intersectional feminism, celebrity feminism, different contexts. And these include feminitives, which means like women and professional titles, and how women and men should be called and treated and kind of addressed in professional contexts. Body positivity, and then some elements of market feminism, including feminist fashion, like introducing feminist fashion, makeup, and so on. And also there's an increasing number of feminist social media influencers that we can follow on Russian-speaking online media, who have sponsored deals with global brands, are relying on their groups of followers, and are actually producing content for social media professionally. And then also another point in this development is that media celebrities, these like more like old-fashioned glamorous celebrities, are also proclaiming as feminists. And one of them is Ksenia Sobchak, former presidential candidate and a long-time media celebrity in Russia, now supporting pretty openly and strongly feminism and feminists. But there are also other celebrities, for example, a comedian and an actress, Yekaterina Varnava. So this is probably where we are now with digital feminism. It's one aspect of it. And I have a few slides to show you some examples of different types of social media influencers and feminist micro celebrities, as we call them. And here first one is Zalina Marcinkulova. She's the owner of the Telegram channel Female Power, kind of sharing her feminist ideas on Telegram, which is one of the kind of the newest social media and technologies, and very important to political activism and critical journalism, maybe also in Russia. So basically, social media influencers and micro celebrities, they shape audience attitudes through social media, blogs, tweets, other social media, and they generate celebrity through grassroots-driven social media, cultivating as much attention as possible and using their personalities as the center of that attention, of course. And they kind of start to cultivate this capital, with this kind of celebrity capital for themselves with social media attention. But also there's this aspect and moment of they can communicate directly with their audiences on social media platforms and potentially become professionals in other spheres of media as well. So basically this is what I'm talking about when I refer to influencers or micro celebrities, also in the following cases, which I'm going to show. So there are different strategies to promote feminism when you are a social media influencer or micro celebrity in a Russian context. And one of the cases is Alexandra Mitroshina, and she's originally an Instagram entrepreneur, like professionally with sponsor deals, producing content to Instagram, using her own image, own body as the center of that content. So she's a fitness model and entrepreneur, and also a strategic feminist, from time to time taking part in feminist campaigns and promoting feminism in her Instagram. But it happens very sporadically, and it's not kind of the main content of her Instagram, as opposed to the previous example. And then we can go on. Nixel Pixel, probably one of the most well-known examples of young new generation social media influencers and feminist bloggers. She's also a professional blogger, illustrator, micro celebrity, and by some media outlet, the best known or the most famous Russian feminist currently. So she's producing more consistently and systematically feminist content on YouTube. And she started her feminism on YouTube since in 2016, when kind of the first feminism themed video appeared on her YouTube channel, which she had started already a few years earlier. So what she does on her channel, she explains terminology of intersectional feminism in Russian language. So she's also kind of translating these global ideas and international ideas coming from theory, academic writing to Russian language to making intersectional theories accessible to Russian younger generation Russian language online audiences. So basically, it's an educational. We can see it as an educational project. She's educating her audiences while speaking against sexism, like systematic or structural sexism, discrimination, gender stereotyping. These are the topics that keep repeating in her videos. It's quite repetitive, the content there. But the most viewed video on her channel from a couple of years ago that has more than 1 million views is on body positivity. So we can then kind of at least make the assumption that body positivity is one of the most well-known, topics of female empowerment and intersectional feminism among the kind of the larger audiences in Russia. But also recently, the themes of online hate speech, harassment, verbal violence are increasing, and they're becoming increasingly frequent on her channel. So it means that she's harassed quite extensively. There's a lot of attacks towards her by other influential online figures. And it's become quite a problem. And at some point, she was exhausted by this and kind of took a break from her online activism. So it's a balancing act, like how much hate you can bear and how much you want to respond. But I'm seeing that this is this theme is becoming more frequent on her channel as well, although it's basically or mostly devoted to kind of positive empowerment and positive, take on feminism and the opportunities that feminism empowerment might bring to you. Her role, she's also discussing her role as a social media influencer through her responses to the hate speech that she gets. And as Sobchak was already mentioned as one of the kind of the older generation mediated feminists in current Russia, she published a video on her own YouTube channel, Осторожно, Sobchak, Be Aware of Sobchak, where she brought together two generations of, we can say maybe like feminist activists and post-feminist figures from the early 2000 glamour media. So it's interesting to see how she kind of is building bridges between two different periods maybe in gender identification or feminist identification between early 2000 post-feminism, glamour culture, this makeover culture here represented by women from glamour media and then newer generation political feminist activists coming from the grassroots field and social media field. So this is one of the examples or one of the ways Sobchak is using her celebrity status to somehow support feminism, but also to herself benefit from this growing influence of online feminism on society and audiences as well. And it's interesting what Alla Mitrofanova, I'm referring to her again, the cyber feminist from 1990s is saying about Ksenia Sobchak. And this is again from Inna's interview. And she's actually asking Mitrofanova about presidential elections and politics, Russian politics. The question is, are the Russian presidential elections in any way relevant to feminists? Since like in politics, feminism isn't so much supported currently in Russia. And then Mitrofanova answers that, yes, because we have this interesting story presidential candidate, Ksenia Sobchak. She's very friendly towards feminism and constantly fights sexism in media and politics. She's making feminism more visible in a political sense. All people who support her are young people and professionals who used to be sexists. So they're not feminists, but they have had to change their old-fashioned ideas on gender because of her. So this is a very interesting take on the role of Ksenia Sobchak and how she's supporting feminism in her own ways and kind of now being recognized by a feminist pioneer, a Russian post-Soviet feminist pioneer. And I wanted to, do we have time for a little music video here? Because I wanted to now stop and make a break and show a video, if I can use this. Let's see. Okay. Here. And here. Can you see the YouTube now? Can you hear the music when I play it? Can you hear? Okay, great. So I wanted to show you a video. This is like a very interesting example of intersecting pop culture and digital feminist activism, and then we can discuss it after you and I can explain it, and maybe Daniil can help me explaining it after we've watched the entire video. But enjoy. I'm trying to.
There's no sound. There's no sound.
No sound, yeah. The sound is off.
Okay, so there's no sound?
No sound, no.
Is there like on Zoom, for some reason I lost my cursor, like I can't see what I'm doing.
I think there might be an option here on WebEx to change the sound. So on the very bottom, on the left next to video, there are audio options. And I don't know if you can change something over there so we can hear the sound.
This is the problem is that I'm not very experienced with using this.
No problem,
Particular.
me neither.
And then another thing that just happened when I tried to play the video is that my cursor is not showing on the screen. So when I'm trying to hit hit something, I don't see what I'm doing. So I'm having some technical issues here. So please, I don't know what to do now. Okay, maybe I'll just show the images because I was quite prepared for this to happen, and maybe then you can watch it later if you're interested. I was just like very curious to listen and hear what you think about this type of media content, but I'm trying to now somehow get out of here. Oh God.
You could try to press escape on the top left of your, I think, of your keyboard.
Yeah.
If that helps.
It does. Yeah, thank you. And I'm trying to switch back to my PowerPoint now. No. No.
Maybe I'm sharing your PowerPoint. I tried.
Yeah, if you can do that.
I tried to share my screen, and at least
Sorry.
at least we have it. But it also not gonna work with me. So you see it now?
Yes, I can see it, and this is exactly what I'd like to start the discussion from here.
It does not work either, but I can show at least to some pictures. Is it right now?
Yeah, these are the pictures I wanted to show. So
Yeah.
basically, this is a music video by a pop artist, Labada, and she's a very well-known singer. Been there in pop music and pop scene since since 2000s, like early 2000s, and she's actually also known from a band Viagra. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's like I think there was 3 women in this band, and they had this like very sexualized image, and were, you know, and their name was Viagra, and I don't remember what their hit song was, but it was quite, you know, well known already, maybe also outside Russia. But that's some time ago already, so maybe you might have already forgotten about that. It kind of belongs to the early 2000s glamour and this like post-feminist media culture. But her video from 2020 is interesting because she starts with, if you can show the previous slide, it starts with a quote from Simone de Beauvoir in French, and quoting the second sex. So it starts with openly, like it connects from the very beginning to feminist theory, from the kind of the biggest authorities of feminist feminism in history. And the second, it kind of presents this interesting story, or mini, we can say like mini video film or movie even, and introduces this some room where powerful men have gathered in a circle, and in the center there one after another women come to act these like maybe kind of carnivalized or grotesque sexual dances. And each woman in the video is also well known from other media contexts, and they are exactly those social media influencers, body positive model. There's a body positive model, and so they're coming from this digital sphere and the sphere of online feminism. And then in this video, they appear in a new context of pop music and this big industry, big music industry. And then the last video, last image there shows also this. This is an image of like, I think to me it's like combined glamour culture and this like conspicuous consumption of early 2000s or 1990s and early 2000s, and these symbols, like very direct symbols of wealth in her golden rings, and the market feminism, consumerist feminism in a lipstick that says feminist. It's like some French brand of lipstick, and it's feminist. And at the end, in this part of the video, the women have taken power already, so they have now encircle, and then there's this lonely figure of the sad man who's trying to make a striptease or perform a striptease to these women. So it's full of meaning, and it's very multi-layered, but also takes part in this current spread of feminist ideas through media, also converging neoliberal media context, popular culture, digital activism, and, you know, taking part in mediating feminist ideas in different ways in current media culture. And can I see this next slide? So this is actually, Daniil has analyzed this video and other examples of pop feminism in more detail in his article for Nova, is it Неприкосновенный Запас from last year. And here he's developing this concept of pop feminism represented by Labada here, but also others as Manija, you might remember from the last Eurovision Song Contest, and a rapper Tatarka, and some others. So they openly proclaim feminist slogans, symbols, as you could see the quote, for example, the quote from Simone de Beauvoir. So they openly and directly connect to feminist politics, feminist ideology and theory even. And while showing images of emancipated, empowered and sexualized femininity. And this type of pop feminism, as Daniil has argued, is depoliticized and individual understanding of feminism. It's not about collective struggle to change societal structures, as feminism as political movement has been an advanced gender equality in society, but about individual pursuit of success and happiness, both within private and public spheres. So it's very individualized in that sense and connects with neoliberal ideology very closely. And there's also theories of neoliberal feminism by other feminist scholars, and they come very close to these representations as well. So feminism basically in these representations mean women's right to take power, as it's shown in this in a very kind of very concrete way in the video. First, men are in power, evaluating women, and then women take power. So it's the right for women to take power in whatever field they want to be active in whatever field they want to kind of reach or gain a role and become successful. And the main thing about success is economic success and money and becoming rich, basically. So social media in this context is considered a space in which carefully managed images of sexualized femininity. And these celebrities also are active both on social media and also kind of established media industries. But these social grassroots, more grassroots driven social media influencers are also using social media to manage their own image of femininity, but also the audiences. And then they can turn that context into empowerment strategies, which enables women to gain power over their audiences. And that way they harness symbolic and social capital in this quantified and commercialized form in this neoliberal media context. And the next slide is the last one. I'm drawing some conclusions, trying to kind of, probably this is where we're going to start next. We're asking the question of whether this is neoliberalization of Russian feminism or a version of it. Or is feminism in Russia undergoing a more kind of stronger process of neoliberalization, where new media becomes a center stage for the development of discourses of female empowerment and emancipation? It's currently, as you can see from these examples, rather firmly established within progressive media, but its position is still precarious because of potential conflict with neoliberal conservatism and other conservative voices, which I haven't touched upon very much, but still exist and could be a topic for another lecture or a lecture series even. And the question would be that what are the gains and losses of neoliberalization of feminism in Russia, in the Russian context, in political context? To what extent this type of feminism resists conservative tendencies in gender and sexual politics of Putin's regime, and which way it aligns with the official discourse, because one of the key components is this ambiguity between we don't know at the end how much supportive they are or how much they're just kind of capitalizing on feminism, these types of feminist influencers. And how is it then perceived and interpreted by audiences? What do audiences get from it? Do they get empowerment from these representations? And how it might then impact the society and the power dynamics and also power dynamics between different feminisms, as we see there are many. But I will stop here. Thank you very much for your attention and your time.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. Thank you so much. And I stop the recording right now.
Thank you.
Stop recording.